He doesn't know how to do an interview.
It's I don't know. Oh no, it's about 9:05. Yeah. All right, man. Good to talk to you. Only on Fort Myers Beach, everybody. Our first guest now is leaving the beach. Come on down, Lindsay.
Yes, we have Lindsay Scott-Garza.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
And the crowd goes wild. Go
Yes.
wild, crowd.
They're going wild. They're going wild.
Lindsay, I apologize for my behavior so far.
Is it on?
Yeah, you're
okay,
doing
you can
great.
hear me
Yeah,
okay?
everybody
All right,
can hear
very
you. Yeah.
good. Okay.
Lindsay Scott-Garza is running for Lee County Judge.
Yes,
and
sir.
It's,
In
it's
group 4.
It's,
Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
It's not very distinguished, our show, and now we feel like you're going to be the next judge, and you see how we behave, and you're like regretting even coming down here.
No,
Right?
I think it's great. I think it's great. He had me laughing over there.
When he said he lived on the beach, you know what he means?
Oh, I knew what he meant.
Now,
I knew what he meant. Your barber comment.
Yeah.
Your barber's, but at least you have hair on your head. My dad isn't so lucky with his barber.
Let's talk about your dad for a second. Who is your dad?
My dad's a retired Sheriff Mike Scott.
Yes, very nice. How long was he the sheriff for?
He was the sheriff for 16 years, I want to say.
Wow.
Maybe just
how
south
was
of
that growing up with your dad being the like? How does dating
No
get
kidding.
handled in that
man.
situation?
No kidding. How many
He
of
said,
your
I'll be
boys?
cleaning my guns if you bring over
Nice.
a boy, but that wasn't true. He
How
was-
many of your
You
boys?
had to go to Miami to find.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, isn't that right?
See, what we like to do is put our guests in the sun so they can't. So
Yes.
if they get
Do you wanna-
sunburned
would
when.
you like to switch seats?
I'm okay.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
so we'll just give her a free hat,
It's
dear.
okay.
So, Lindsay, can I ask you a question you don't have to answer
Of course.
before we go to
for
our
it.
speed round? We do a
Go for
speed
it.
round of questions. Like, does your dad have any opinion on like how the sheriff's doing now, the current sheriff? Are
We
they?
think he's doing a great job.
Yeah.
You know, he describes himself as my dad was the old busted up Chevy that was just kind of barely getting down the road. And here comes in Carmine, like the souped up Maserati.
Yeah, the media
just bright
savvy
and
guy.
Shiny. And yes, exactly.
Did you notice the first?
Who characterizes your dad that way?
He does.
I
Oh,
see.
okay. Okay.
And I said,
I
no,
see.
Dad, you're a fast moving Chevy.
Yeah, nice. Did you see the first? What was the first face that you saw coming over the bridge today? Do you remember the first face that you saw?
I actually don't remember.
It was Sheriff Marcino's face because
Oh
it was
my
on the
gosh.
side of a trailer that they have
Oh
set
my
up over
God,
here
I
by
didn't even know. I was
Margaritaville.
looking-
Yeah.
You were looking at your phone. That's what
I'm-
you were just
No,
going to say. You were looking
no,
at your
no.
phone.
Shame on me. I'm checking my mom's watching my baby girl, so I'm.
Oh, and how old is your baby?
observant. 15 months
Oh,
old,
very
almost
nice.
a year and a half.
Wow,
Yeah.
little.
You have no time to be a judge if you
Oh,
have
I
a
got a
baby
lot
girl.
of time.
Come
Oh,
on.
Mom, I mastered
she's
the
a
juggle.
multitasker,
Yes,
yes.
exactly.
All right,
Exactly.
and
now-
you have support.
Lots of support. My
Now-
husband's great. My parents are great.
We're going to start a stopwatch
Okay.
here. And
All
what we
right.
do is a speed round of questions
Okay.
that have nothing to do with anything.
Okay.
So you just have, and you cannot think about them. You just have to answer them.
Oh man, this is like
You ready?
favorite flavor of
The
ice
clock
cream.
is running.
Kind of.
Oh God.
Dog or cat?
Dog.
Person. Okay.
Favorite TV show growing up?
Oh. Maybe I don't know Gilligan's Island because it was on. My dad.
Very nice.
Nice.
Why do you throw your dad into the Gilligan's
Yes,
Island thing?
that's what he would put on the TV, and that's what we watched. And he'd make jokes. So
Oh.
we were out on the boat.
All
and
right,
we'd get
that's
caught
too
in a
many,
rainstorm. Okay,
too long an
okay,
answer.
okay.
Stick to the
Favorite
question.
movie?
Oh my gosh, Armageddon! I love Bruce
Okay.
Willis.
Oh,
Okay.
that's a good one.
I like
What
Bruce
are
Willis.
the three most interesting people you know and why? Can't be family.
Oh my gosh, three most
That's too
interesting
long.
people I know.
Pick one.
What's one interesting person
Well,
you know?
the judge that I practiced in front of for a long time, Judge Margaret Steinbeck, she's fascinating. She's a mom. She was in the Army and military, so
Okay.
I have a lot of admiration
All right.
for
If
her.
you had 30 minutes and a tape recorder, who would you want to interview?
Oh,
Dead or alive?
I'm going to say Selena because she
Wow.
was actually the Mexican pop star that
Yeah.
just passed
Yeah.
away. My sister and I grew up watching that movie, and we loved that movie.
Wow,
and so
that's a good one.
I'd love to talk to her.
Most embarrassing moment.
Oh, that I feel like it's good for me to share.
Now I can tell you that we had the principal of the school on, and she said, I can't stop telling this story every
I know.
week.
It's a great one.
Her most embarrassing moment was when somebody pulled her pants down in front of other people. Not when she was the
gosh,
principal. Well, how old was she when that happened to you? Remember?
She was
You
in
don't have
middle
to keep
school.
that on
I
your
see.
head. You don't have to keep that on your
I'm
head.
going to try and adjust
Well, it
that
just
in a minute.
happened to me. So this is pretty embarrassing. I bought 2 gift cards. And one was for one amount, one was for another amount. And anyway, I got
Uh-oh.
them switched up.
Oh boy!
And
And
mixed
somebody
up.
was really happy,
yes,
and somebody was
but she
offended.
deserved every penny of it. And so,
I see.
but it was kind of embarrassing for me.
That's
So I'm
not
going
a-
to make it right to the other person.
Lindsay, I
they
have to
both
tell you,
deserve it all.
that's
so.
that wasn't a good one. That
was
wasn't really
not-
embarrassing.
that's
That was
just
terrible.
I was
terrible.
really embarrassed by
Embarrassing.
it. As attention to detail that I need to
That's
be
right.
on my
You want to
game.
ask one?
Yeah, I'll
Don't
ask
show her.
All right.
Oh, yeah, I'm not looking.
So
I'm
if
not
you were
looking.
going around the country in an RV, who would you take along with you?
Oh, for sure, my husband.
Not your husband.
Oh,
So
Somebody
not
come
my
else.
on.
husband. So
That's
my
an easy
sister.
answer.
My
All right,
sister.
that's
I
okay.
take my
Okay.
sister.
If you won $1 million, what would you do with it?
Ooh, we would invest, and I'd buy a new. I'm itching for a new SUV, so I'd buy a nice mom truck.
Nice.
That would
So it
that
could
would
fit
take
more
about
babies.
half of it right now.
Yeah,
So-
exactly, and the gas to fill it with. So
So Biden or Trump?
I
You
can't,
can't
answer
answer
that.
that.
That's right. That's right. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Like, and you told me the rules, and I, of course, I
That's
violated them.
okay, it's
All right, now
okay.
I asked this
Did
on
you,
behalf.
you did not forget.
I don't know why I asked that. It wasn't on the
It's
list. I just
okay.
threw that in there.
Okay.
Now, this I'm asking for my wife because she was totally, she couldn't stop watching this. Amber Heard or Johnny Depp?
Oh yeah, right.
You know what? I didn't have time to watch it, so
Cop out right there.
sorry.
Did OJ do it?
Oh, I can't answer that either. I can't answer that.
All right,
What's that
excellent
saying? If the
job.
glove
Way
don't
too-
fit, you
Right,
must
right,
have
right.
quit. They
Excellent
said,
job.
I
That
don't
was a
know.
while ago.
So you've been a prosecutor for 8 years.
8
Well,
years,
Let's
correct?
let
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
give us
Tell
your,
everybody who
your
you are.
history, where you went to school.
Okay, yeah,
kind
that's-
of, you know.
I could do
mean, you
that,
don't
so-
have to go back to grade school, but you
No,
know.
well, I grew up here. I'm 3rd generation native. My grandma was born here, my dad, and then my sister and I were born here. I went to North Fort Myers High School, so don't hold that against me, anyone. I'm a red knight. And then I went to FGCU. That's where I got my undergrad, my bachelor's degree. I majored in legal studies, and I actually minored in the Spanish language. I'm fluent in Spanish as well. So after FGCU, I actually went to law school at St. Thomas in Miami. I say in Miami because every time I say St. Thomas, people are like, wow, you got to go to the
Virgin
island.
Islands.
I said, no, I wish I was in Miami, which I enjoyed. But of course, Miami's not my home. So after law school, I graduated, I passed the bar exam, and then I came back home to Lee County, and I've been prosecuting at this state attorney's office ever since. So
How long is the bar exam? Like, how long do they give you for that puppy?
It's 2 days. It is 2 days long, and it is in 3-hour segments. So 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon, and day 2 is 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon.
I
we
won't
have-
ask you to do the math.
Oh, it's scary.
It's like 6
Yeah.
hours or something like that.
And then you've got
day.
about 2-3 months to study for it. You know,
Wow.
after 3 years of law school, you're trying to cram all this information in your brain to execute in 2 days. And so, but
That's
got through
crazy.
it.
So,
First try. So
Yay.
got
so
through
you
it.
became. How did you advance to become a prosecutor?
So I got the job. I started out doing misdemeanor cases. So that's county court level. So that's the position I'm running for. If I was elected, county court handles misdemeanor cases for criminals. So that's what I started out doing. Small fish, petty theft, domestic violence, things of that nature. Then I worked my way into the felony unit. There I was doing some white collar crime stuff. So like fraud cases, things of that nature. And then after dad retired in Lee County, I started in Punta Gorda in Charlotte County.
Okay.
Then I came over to Lee County where I was a part of the special victims unit. And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years.
Well, explain
So-
what that is.
Special victims unit covers the children cases. So anything doing with one of our most vulnerable victims in our community, our children, child pornography, child molestation, child abuse, as well as very serious things that happen to adults. So adult rape cases, human trafficking, severe domestic violence. So things of attempted murder.
I
Those
am
kinds of cases.
in shock at the amount of child pornography that goes on. Not everywhere.
It's very scary.
It's bizarro.
Yeah. People watch, the Law and Order Special
Mhm,
Victims
Victims
Unit
Unit.
TV all the
Mhm.
time, and they're like, "Is that really how it is here?" You look at this show and you think that's just a TV show, and like, unfortunately, those things are happening in our backyard, in our community.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that is shocking is the human trafficking that goes on.
Yep.
That
And
you
that's-
think, right? under your nose, not
Exactly.
under yours.
No, but it can happen on multiple different fronts. There's immigrants that are here that get caught up in that, whether it's, on the farm, or women getting trafficked for a variety of different things. Like you've seen the movie Taken,
right?
Similar to that. And it's scary. It's scary.
Well, and people who get taken right in the U.S. I mean, it's a lot in the U.S., not just abroad.
Not just local. And then it's hard to prosecute those sometimes because these victims are terrified of their abuser, what's going to happen to them, especially if they're here illegally. That, makes matters a little bit more complicated. So yeah, it can be really difficult. I just about a couple months ago was a human trafficking case. He was found guilty, sentenced to 2 life sentences. It was a huge victory for our office. It was awesome.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you decide you're going to run for judge.
Yes,
Why?
sir. Well, I love our community. I'm born and raised here, so I have a vested interest in what happens in our community, but especially with the judiciary, because that's where my background is. And being in front of several different judges, I've done a lot of good as a prosecutor for our community, as being a public servant. And I see a need for some change on the bench. And so as much as the political process isn't very appealing to most individuals, we need good people in these positions. And so I decided that was something that I felt I was ready to do and still feel.
Now, when you mentioned change, what can you expound a little bit?
My opponent, I thought he was going to be retiring.
Yeah, because he's been on
north of 10 years.
Yes, I think 2 6-year terms, right? It's a 6-year term.
It's a 6-year term. So what happens is he was appointed by Governor Charlie Crist way back, and then he was up for re-election after 6 years, and then he won both of those elections that he was in. So this is the 3rd time he will have been up for re-election. And how it works is we serve 6-year terms. And then at that 6 years, when the term is up, if we do not have any opposition, we would just continue on as a judge for another 6 years. If we do have opposition, just like we see what's happening now with an election, that would trigger another election process.
Got it.
Okay. So would you have run? He wasn't planning to run at the beginning, right? And then
I don't know.
Okay.
I told a few people my intentions, obviously my family, my husband, my boss, Amir Fox. And then I actually sat down with him and let him know what my intentions were. I wanted him to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. You can imagine legal community, rumors spread like wildfire. Right. So I owed him that much as a professional courtesy. I have a lot of respect for him. And but he actually did let me know in that conversation that he had not planned to retire. And we shook hands. It's been very cordial. And that's why this process is set up the way it is, to give the people the choice.
What has been your, did you have another question?
No, go right ahead. I want to make sure I don't.
All right. So what has been your greatest accomplishment in your legal career, would you say?
I was going to say, you have to specify, because in my whole life, it's been my daughter.
Of course.
That's, regardless of what title I may achieve, if I am honored to win the vote and I become, Your Honor or Judge, Mama is always going to be the best title. But probably in my legal career, what I'm doing now, prosecuting special victims unit cases and getting these great guilty verdicts, working with law enforcement, seeing, and bringing it all together. This last case I did before I took leave from the office was an attempted murder where the individual shot his paramour in the face in front of their 4 children. The kids were 3 through 12. She survived. She had multiple surgeries. Mouth had to be sewn shut for over a month. Of course, the kids were impacted significantly. And this case went all the way to trial. And of course, 3 of those children had to testify. And it was very intense. It was very nerve-wracking, of course, for the victim, because she did survive. What happens if he's not guilty? If he gets out, what does that mean for me and my kids? And so when that guilty verdict came back and my co-counsel and I saw her smile and she gave us a hug, it gives me goosebumps talking about it, because she knew her and her kids were going to be safe. And that's as good as it gets in these situations. She's got a lot of healing to do. So does the family. But that was a very big high for me in my legal career, getting that for her and her family.
So how much money have you raised so far, and how much do you think you're going to need to win?
Well, I need people to vote. So money's great because it allows me to get on the radio, it allows me to be on TV, it allows me to buy the shirt that I'm wearing and the signs that you see around town. But votes are what really matters. People showing up to vote, whether that's signing up for the absentee ballot. Folks can actually still sign up to get a mail-in ballot. They have until the 13th to get signed up. So it's just people voting. We've raised about $190,000. About 40 of that is a self-loan that my husband and I did. But the rest of that, which is a good chunk that I'm very proud of, was raised by members of our community.
And do you have other events that are coming up that people can attend? And
yep, we've got there's some small events that are actually put on by different chambers that are coming up. The biggest one we had was about 3 weeks ago, Cape Coral Hobnob event. And that was very successful. In fact, they didn't let any more people, and they took a straw poll. I'm honored to say I won that straw poll, which was pretty exciting. So as far as campaign events for myself, we don't have anything coming up in the near future. We're 2 weeks out, and we're 2 weeks out.
Okay.
So we are at the, we're going to be waving. So if anybody wants to wave with us, we're going to be waving.
So
I'm going to be recruiting folks.
No campaign forums or debates or anything like that?
No, not for us.
Is that because you don't do that? And
I'd be open to it. I think it's difficult for my opponent and I. We are so limited in what we can really speak about. People want to know how we feel about abortion. People want to know how we feel about transgender issues that are going on. And that's fair because the voters have a right to be as informed as possible. So these are, valid concerns that I would be asking if, for an elected official, but we're so limited in what we can talk about. And so I think that's maybe why folks shy away from having forums for us, because we can really just talk about ourselves, which is, boring. Attorneys are good at that though. But, yeah.
So aside from you thought there needed to be change, why do you want to be a judge?
Well, it's something I kind of always thought I'd want to do as a career goal of mine. In the back of my head, I guess following in my dad's footsteps into public service, being a servant of the community in that role. And you try to do things that you think you'd be good at for your community. And I think I would be a great judge. I hate tooting my own horn, but that's what you have to do in this role. You have to promote yourself. And so a lot of it has to do with personality. Yes, you have to follow the law. Yes, you make tough decisions, but your temperament on the bench. And so I want to make sure I mention this because this will give you an insight as to what kind of judge the people can expect from me. Where the judge sits is called a bench, not a throne. I'll let that sink in.
Are you
it's
saying
called a
somebody
bench,
else uses it as a throne? Are you saying?
What I'm saying is that I think sometimes judges lose sight of that. That we are, just because you wear the black robe and you sit higher up than anybody else in your courtroom doesn't make you better. Just because I'm a judge doesn't mean I know everything about the law. My job is to hear out the advocates, give everybody an equal opportunity to share their position, and at the end of the day, make a decision that's supported by the law and the facts of the situation.
What do you think is going to be a challenge going from being on one side of things to now having to, obviously weigh both sides, which I'm sure you will do, but I'm just saying, what is the challenge in that?
It's like switching hats, right?
Yeah.
I have experience in that role as a prosecutor. I'm a mom now, and I'm handling these really sensitive cases with children. I want to file on all of them, but I can't. Right? I have to take my mom hat off, follow the law. And if I've got a case that it's just not there, I have to make that tough decision and not put it through the system. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like I've ready for this next step and making those tough calls, making those decisions. So, but as far as the challenge goes and getting into that role, I think the biggest challenge is going to be, it's my courtroom, right? It's my, how do I organize it? How do I keep the flow of things moving in an efficient way so that these caseloads don't get, out of hand? So it's just going to be a much different role. But as far as the impartiality of it, quite frankly, I don't think that will be very different. As a prosecutor, if it wasn't there, it didn't go in the system. If unfortunately law enforcement made a mistake, we're human, we make mistakes. If that evidence isn't coming in, and I know that going forward, that's not a case I can put in the system. So And I did work at the public defender's office actually when I was an intern in law school. So I have that experience of being on the other side. I also did the specialty courts for Charlotte County. So that's mental health court, veterans court, drug court. So I've seen the other side of things, where these rehabilitation programs really do work. So it's not always jail. That's not always the answer. And so I think
not with the way
some people deserve it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've dropped cases and I've put people away for the rest of their lives.
Do you think the system is fair for everybody?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Even people that don't have the
means, maybe. I do. Our public defender's office, they don't get the credit that they deserve. Sometimes we hear it in the jail calls that we listen to, that they are not happy. They've got the public defender. They don't get the respect that they deserve. There's some really hardworking folks there. My husband was one of them for many years. And so it's unfortunate. Sometimes individuals don't want to they don't want to take the responsibility. So they want someone to blame and point the finger. But we really do have sufficient access. And we've got competent folks at the public defender's office to provide those folks that don't have the means to hire a private lawyer great representation.
Do you talk about kids a lot, and you help kids a lot in what you do now. When you see a 10-year-old being perp walked, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a tough thing to answer, obviously. And someone recently asked me about that a couple days ago. A perp walk is simply a way to inform the public about the arrest that was made, and that it is being taken very seriously, obviously, by the sheriff's office. It doesn't have any implication with my job as a prosecutor. And I will tell you, it could affect a jury pool, right? We've got citizens coming in for jury service, and that was a highly publicized event. It caused a lot of controversy in our community. And so it may be hard to find jurors that haven't heard about that. And they may have made a position in their mind already, okay, he's definitely guilty, for example, of doing, they wouldn't have perp walked if he's not guilty. That could be problematic in trying to get a fair and impartial jury. That could be a problem for the judge too, presiding over that jury selection. So, as far as my personal thoughts on it, I think probably safe to not share those. Quite frankly, it's not trying to dodge the question. I don't want to, I have to be very careful about what I say. I'll leave you with this, though. Regardless of my personal beliefs on these things, yes, I'm a mom and these things tug at my heartstrings. Regardless of those beliefs, children, anything, my job, the oath I take, is to be fair and impartial. And that's an oath I take very seriously. The same oath I took as a prosecutor, take very seriously. Don't abuse your power. So I mentioned a bench, not a throne. We have a lot of discretion. And our job is to hear things out, give everybody a fair shake, and at the end, follow the law. That's how I've been practicing. Use common sense, do the right thing. Those are the two things in our Constitution, obviously, which I'm a big fan of. Follow those three principles. It shouldn't be that difficult.
So
can I just ask
yes.
you were talking about juries and jury selection. I recently was called. It was a civil case, but I was recently called. And my number was like 800. And I thought, well, no way. But I did get called. Sure. I did get, and only half of the people showed up, which really surprised me because I thought you could get in big trouble. But anyways, what do you think about, our juries representative of the community? Are you getting, and is there anything that can be done to kind of increase those numbers?
So we've been, COVID unfortunately hit us like a ton of bricks in the court system, but can't blame everything on COVID forever. And we have done an excellent job in trying to get back caught up and move cases through the system. And we've actually I have not had a case, and this is important because we're trying big cases here. So an attempted homicide, a human trafficking, a child molestation, we actually prefer to have 60 jurors in our courtroom because a lot of folks, they're not able to set their personal beliefs aside or they've got a bias on these types of issues, as you can imagine. So we're calling in a significant amount of jurors because not all of them may be great for this type of case, right? And we have had actually a pretty good turnout. We haven't been able to not go forward because of a lack of citizens showing up. And we find that most of those that show up, they're thanked profusely by both sides and the bench. Thanked profusely for showing up, because we get it. And we try to accommodate when we can. Students, over the summer months, we had a lot of students on summer break, but they were taking classes. We've got folks with health issues, or they're full-time caregivers for folks at home with health issues. So we definitely try to make those accommodations for folks. There is there's summonses, right? So it's not really an invitation that you can RSVP to. You're supposed to go. Have to go unless there's a valid reason, of course, to get out of it. But I don't know that we'll ever start. It'd have to be pretty drastic for us to really start significantly enforcing and compelling folks. But we could, so that's the avenue. But our citizens have actually done a really good job.
Well, I wasn't picked, but I wasn't offended.
I'm sure you're probably, thank God.
It is nerve-wracking because both times that I've been in that situation, you're sitting in front, and you're right. I mean, the judge is sitting up top, and you're like, my name? Give me a minute. I mean,
sure, yeah.
Lindsay, do you think the jury system is set up the way it should be? And what I mean by that is you have both sides now have jury consultants, so they're looking at somebody's skin color, they're looking at their eyes, looking at them, the way they twitch, and then you get eliminated sometimes for no reason. Or I mean, is it really set up the way it should be? Should each side be able to have a jury consultant to tell them, okay, that person's good, that person? I mean,
in an ideal world, sure. We don't see that as much in the criminal world.
Okay.
That's more in the civil world, where the big bucks are online, and the folks that have the money to pay for jury consultants on really big cases, $1 million, multi-million-dollar type civil suits. That's where you see the jury consultant. But otherwise, it's just your eyes and your ears of you. And if you have a co-counsel sitting with you, you've mentioned they're called preemptory challenges. So when you can just get rid of somebody for no reason. However, if it is someone that's in a minority group or gender, the judge can, or somebody can, the opposing counsel can challenge that for a race, gender neutral reason.
Okay.
And then the judge looks at the person that struck them. Okay, give me a race, gender neutral reason. You can't just, get rid of folks because you don't want females on your panel. You don't want males, or you don't want someone that's African American. You can't do that. So if there is a valid reason behind why, then it passes the challenge. So I do feel like there are safeguards in place. And of course, as the judge, I will tell you that the law is set up to err on the side of caution. So if there is somebody on a jury panel that is kind of right there on the line, erring on the side of cautions mean they should either stay if the answer to that race, gender neutral reason is not that great. That's the judge's job to kind of analyze that, or that the person goes because they truly cannot be unbiased. They're truly not going to be able to follow that innocent until proven guilty, or can't hold it against the accused if they choose not to testify. Those are two big ones for folks that they can't get around, and that's okay. We understand that, but that's why they need to go. So yes, I do feel like it is set up to give both sides a fair shake.
In the 8 years that you've been a prosecutor, take the kid cases out and the human trafficking cases out. What case or two are you most proud of prosecuting and winning?
Well, she said
besides the one that was mentioned.
Right.
Yeah, besides, I mean, and taking out the sex cases is difficult because those are adult victim or child victim, because that's a lot. Some of these kids are so young when they have to testify, or they're so young when it happened to them. And now they're having to recall these specific details in front of their abuser in an open public setting. So, I am proud of those. I'll never forget, though. I'll share this with you. When I was in the domestic violence unit, county court, again, misdemeanor stuff, smaller scale, right? So in county court, the maximum punishment is 364 days in the Charlotte County, or in the jail, whether either county, doesn't matter. But I was in Charlotte County when I did county court. That's what I'm used to saying.
Yeah, 365 here.
No, it's 364 everywhere. But it was a case. There was a domestic violence case. The kid, they were young. They were in their early 20s, and the victim did not. she changed her tune. She didn't want to go forward, but we had video evidence. We had photographic evidence. Her best friend testified that was there. No, it happened this way. I saw it this way. And so I carried forward. I had the 911 call. Like I said, I had the injuries to her. And if she ended up actually testifying for the defendant, for her then boyfriend, saying it was self-defense. I came at him first. So you can imagine this presents a very difficult, for the jury, a very difficult situation for them to decide. And we won that case. It was a guilty. And even it was a smaller scale, the evidence was just so overwhelming to show that is not what happened, that unfortunately he did do these actions to her. And so I'm really proud of that. It was several years ago. But all these wins, they're team wins. It's not just me. It's the victim advocates. It's our clerical staff behind the scenes. It's our investigators. It's law enforcement. I mean, for us to be able to do this type of presentation for a jury, no matter how big or small the presentation is, how big or small the case, it is always a team effort. And honestly, that's what I'm most proud of is my team, the state attorney's office. We've got a great working relationship with our law enforcement, with the court system, with the clerk of court. And so that team, being a part of that team has been I'm very proud of that.
Go ahead.
Who are some of the people that have endorsed you?
So obviously my dad, and I'm really proud of that.
I saw
but besides my dad,
I think I did see. Was he in a TV ad or a radio ad?
He was in both.
Okay,
he did some TV for me too.
Yeah.
We were in there together on that. And then on the radio, he did like a little introductory, like, "Hey, remember me? Remember the old guy, the old bald guy, me?" Here's my dad.
Now every time, not that I see him ever, but now
Mike.
the old Chevy, it's going to come into my mind.
I say Chevy because they've got two Chevys. My mom, they
I have to tell a quick
them.
story. When Tracy, we used to own a gym in Gateway.
Okay.
And Tracy, who was one of our instructors, she got hit on the Sanibel Bridge and died on her bike.
Oh my gosh.
And everybody, all her friends organized a run.
I remember that.
All of her friends organized a run, and your dad showed up to run. Like, he didn't have an entourage.
He's not a runner.
Or he was there for maybe he wasn't running. Maybe he was serving popcorn or something.
Right,
but he was there. But he didn't have an entourage or 18 PIOs or his face on the side of a billboard or some media conglomerate out of it. So it was a down-to-earth kind of thing, which I think that's what I remember the most. Not that your dad's dead or anything like that, but
no, but
it was one of those things.
I get it. No,
it was one of those things like, holy shit, there's the sheriff.
Well, I can tell you the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You know, he's a very humble person. I am too. I have a job to do. I don't need to.
You're at some dinky little podcast.
No,
I mean, look, you'll go anywhere.
Thing. I have to. Unfortunately, in an election, you got to get your name out there, and you have to be seen. So, but this is a great way to do it. He's keep your head down and get the job done kind of guy. That's how I am too.
Yeah. So you were saying, I didn't mean to interrupt, but who have you gotten other than your dad?
Okay,
who's
so
endorsed you?
Larry Hart, who was our former tax
Never
collector.
heard of him.
Never.
No.
Really?
No.
He's
Larry
a
Hart.
legend.
He just said the former.
I've heard of Gary Hart, but not Larry Hart.
No, Larry Hart. He's
probably never heard of Gary Hart.
I never heard of Gary Hart.
Yeah.
Anyway,
what are you, 35?
Joe Dellasan. I will be 35.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll be 35.
So you could be judged for like 50 years.
Hopefully, knock on wood.
Yeah. Well, now are some of the judges? I'll get back to that. Are some of the judges appointed for life? Like, is Sherry Chappelle?
The Supreme Court, they're not technically life appointments, but they technically are. And, in the Constitution, it says they're appointed unless there's not good behavior shown.
Sure.
So it's essentially a life, but other judges are not. So this is a 6-year term.
What if federal judges like Sherry Chappelle lives on our block? What is she?
That's a good
she's been a
question.
judge forever.
I don't know if they're all 6-year terms. I'm not sure if the federal judges actually. I'd have to look. Yeah. I'd have to look that up to be 100% positive.
She's awesome. You know Sherry?
Chappelle's the last name. I want to say I know blonde hair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I know Sherry. She's a great
So
lady.
back to your my original question.
I can't call her Sherry. I shouldn't have said that.
Judge Chappelle.
Thank you.
When she comes by in her car, we say, "There's Judge Chappelle."
Yeah.
No, actually, she took my class at the gym. Never knew she was the judge.
What kind of class do you teach?
I was teaching a boot camp class.
Oh, boot camp. All right.
That was a long time ago.
Now I know where to go.
We were actually
you were asking
about who's endorsed you.
Gary Hart.
So Larry Hart, Joe D'Alessandro, who was our state attorney prior to Steve Russell. Okay. The Senator Ray Rodriguez, Elizabeth Benaquisto, And I think
What about the local
everybody.
guys?
The local guys, the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, the Lee County chapter, they endorsed me, and I am proud of that because those are my opposition for all those years. And so for them to, endorse me, I think that's a testament to my ability to be fair. Some cases, like I said, they deserve life in prison. Other cases do not. You got to follow the law. And if it ain't there, it ain't there. So all
your experience has been in criminal versus family or civil.
Correct. Okay. Yes, that's fair. Okay. Yep. That's fair to say.
So do they like the county reps and people like that, or the really local people? Do they endorse, or they don't get involved in the judge kind of thing?
I think for folks, it's difficult to get involved because, he is an incumbent judge.
I see.
And so I think for some people, and he grew up here as well.
I see.
So he's got a lot of, friendships and connections and things like that too. So I think some folks just err on the safe side of, maybe not openly endorsing,
right.
Again, it does. I'm honored by those endorsements. I truly am. But what truly matters is the vote. What happens in that voting booth, and that's all I truly care about. Bringing in the money is great. Being openly endorsed by these folks is great. But having folks go and vote for me, that's what's going to win.
Yeah. And so everybody that's watching knows the vote is countywide. You'll be on the ballot in Fort Myers Beach, everywhere.
Absolutely. It's countywide. And we've got a big one. So Fort Myers Beach, where I am right now, Lehigh Acres, Cape Coral, Mount Lachey, North Fort Myers, everybody, all of Lee County. If you're a registered Lee County voter, my name, Lindsay Scott Garza, will be on your ballot.
Any other questions, dear?
Well, I didn't know.
Right,
so
we got time.
Specifically to the beach, and people will know I'm asking this question.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
What are some of the issues in balancing free speech against controlling offensive activity? Where's the line? I mean, down here on the beach, there sometimes is a person who is in the square here, preaching, and there are people that are bothered by it. One, because it's loud, and one, because it in their opinion is offensive to them, and they're trying to eat. Where's that line?
Yeah, it's tough because it's a right guaranteed by our Constitution, and so an infringement on that right, you're towing a line there. If someone, and it is unfortunate. There's lots of offensive things that are said openly. I mean, we've got on the footsteps of the courthouse every morning, there's an individual, saying things that aren't accurate, or when there, big protests. That have gone on in our community over various controversial issues. There's protesters on both sides out there, and it isn't convenient for everybody, and it hurts your feelings sometimes depending on what's being said, or, but it's tough to suppress that individual from doing that. There's very little that can truly be done.
Well, and I think that's the thing, is because people want the town or want law enforcement to do something, and I think it's important to get out there. There is a line that has to be crossed before anything can be done, because the First Amendment is protected.
Right, exactly. And so, I mean, I think obviously, we want to keep order, especially, this is where so many people, our tourists, come to this area, specifically Fort Myers Beach. I was telling you earlier, it's beautiful down here, the whole Key West vibe, but it's awesome. And Margaritaville is going to be awesome. So you don't want so much disruption that it deters folks, and so maybe having that, relationship with whoever this individual is, of keeping it cordial, but and I don't know who it is, and I don't have the experience, so I don't know if it's possible, to try to keep somebody at bay, so to speak, so that they're not causing so much of a disruption that it leads to a riot.
Well, I think what happens is
getting upset.
People get upset, and then they engage. And then
engaging is
you're never going to win.
You're never going to win. It's like my husband, with driving on the road. It's like if somebody doesn't use their blinker, they cut you off. You're not going to teach them anything. Yeah, let it go. Yeah,
so what are you saying?
Let it go.
Your husband
no, I'm saying he grew up and learned to drive in Miami, so I'll leave it at that, But you're not going to teach anybody anything. They don't want to. They're not.
And that never ends well.
I mean,
exactly.
It
never
ends
well.
It's hard.
I
because
can imagine.
You say with bad behavior, we know, ignore bad behavior and praise positive
but
behavior.
Lindsay, the thing here on the beach,
difficult.
and there's no good answer to it, but the specific thing here on the beach is we have a preacher that sets up in the public square, which is fine, pictures of dead babies and a bullhorn
Not
that
anymore.
says you're a
Not
sinner
anymore, though,
and
with
says
the
you're
pictures.
a sinner or you're a slut or you're going to hell. Which is, I guess it's fine if that's what his speech wants to be, but people are trying to eat and they're vacationing. And so
people
my
are
thing
going to
is,
get offended if you call me one of those names.
Sure, 100%.
it's just a guy lacks common sense to go somewhere else where people are, I mean, it's just not a good look.
Of course not.
So, and there's nothing anyone can do, because one time the sheriff did try and write them a ticket and he sued and won.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's really tough because any infringement on that constitutional right that we all share.
That's right.
All of us share it, even if we don't like what's being said. And so the best thing to do, obviously, is not to engage. It's not going to help. It's not going to this person is not going to change what he's doing because someone says, please don't show me that. I hope if there's children around, he would have at least that common sense not to show these graphic things in front of, we have a lot of kids here.
So
ice cream shops.
I've read up a lot on this, like on the street performers thing in a public square in different communities. Like the courts won't even say the community can limit the number of street performers, because it's almost like saying that, okay, the 11th street performer, if your group is 10, you can only allow 10. You're discriminating against the 11th person. Like, can you put a cap on the number of street performers that are actually in a public square?
I'm not sure that you can put a cap. I'd honestly, I'd have to look at.
I'd have to consult the.
I'd have to look at I would, to give you a great answer, the right answer, right? That's what you want, the right answer.
But how was not the 11th one impending on his speech? In a public, this is a public
if they don't
square.
allow him to be a part of it because 11 is over the limit.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know that they would be able to limit. Are they limiting street performers?
I'm just saying, like, nobody's like the 11th street performer. I don't think really even understands. So, maybe I should fight that.
Right.
They just think, okay, well, that's the law in that town.
Sure. Or have the money necessarily to fight.
Right. You don't want to go to court.
You don't want to go in blind in a courtroom.
Right.
Some people choose to represent themselves.
The other thing that the town is dealing with now is portable signage. Like they only want you to put campaign signs out 30 days before an election. Well, I mean, that's discriminating against, that's not content neutral.
Right. Well, there's in the other cities, there's rules regarding that as well.
Ordinances.
Is that constitutional?
It must be, because it's been in place for so long. Has
anyone tried to argue it though?
Not that I'm aware of. No. And I don't, I don't know if that's separate city councils.
So portable sign is what you put
a yard sign.
A yard sign. So why is it okay for a real estate sign to be up whenever and a campaign sign to be only up 30 days before an election?
But when the real estate signs are up, like where we live, they come through and clean them all
up. Who knows
up.
that though?
Well, they're owned privately. I think that's the difference. Is like a real estate, somebody owns that land, or somebody owns the home they're trying to sell.
Right.
So they're saying, you can put this sign here, but all of my signs, some are in people's yards and those could have gone up, I believe, whenever yard signs.
Unless you have HOA rules, right?
HOA, right? HOA rules are big ones. Now I guess the people choose to live in the HOA, so they're, subduing themselves to the rules of an HOA. But the big boys, the 4x4s or 4x8, the big signs,
private land,
those are limited to go up on a certain amount of time.
I see.
And obviously you have to have the property owner's permission to put them there.
Now, did you bring signs with you?
I have yard signs in my truck.
Bring them back, please, so
I'd
that
be
we
honored
can put them out in Gateway for you.
100%.
Because we would love for you to win.
Thank you.
Are you winding it up?
Well, it's been almost an hour.
Well, that's why I just
I'm glad
wanted to
paid
give
the meter
you.
good.
Yeah,
I just
no kidding. Well, you know people.
You'll know how to fight that ticket if you so choose to.
No.
Well, how can people find out where you are and donate and
Yep. So
again, give your pitch to be to be
Yeah,
voted in?
yeah.
Sure. So I come with, a lot of experience. Yes, I've been a prosecutor for 8 years. You have to be 5 years as an attorney in order to even be a judge. You have to be 5 years as an attorney and in good standing with the Florida bar. I've been practicing for 8, and I've been making extremely tough calls for the last 4 years doing special victims units. So again, that decision making, that use, my reverence for the Constitution, that use of common sense and just doing the right thing is what I believe makes me the best candidate. You'll see my name on the ballot. August 23rd is the election day. Early voting starts August 13th. That's a weekend. So early voting, you can vote anywhere. It's election day that has the restrictions of your precinct. You have to go to a specific location. That's for election day only, the 23rd of August, which is in 2 weeks. It's crazy. But you can still sign up for a mail-in ballot if you want to.
Can we, so August 23rd is a primary.
Correct. Yep.
So can everybody vote?
Everybody can vote
in your
regardless
primary?
of party affiliation.
I
Yes,
see.
sir.
Okay,
Yep.
that's good to know.
Exactly. Yep.
That's good to
Everybody
know.
can vote. My name's going to be on everybody's ballot, regardless
it's
of their
not
party
affiliation.
affiliation.
There's no
exactly.
okay.
It's a nonpartisan, right? And that's because the judiciary is impartial, and so it's to preserve that impartiality and free from bias. So you can find my website, LindsayScottGarza.com. So it's just my name.com. You can also see me on Facebook. I've got a Facebook page, Lindsay Scott Garza for Lee County Judge on my Facebook page. And there's a way to contact me through both of those avenues. So whether it's members of the public that have questions, again, I'm limited in what I can answer. But I'm happy to answer more questions if a viewer has something.